dusk to the dawn, light spoke first. Before clocks, before kings, before priests or verse. He set the lights up high to rule the way. The sun for the day, the night to its place. Not guessing by shadows, not chasing the moon, but seasons and signs written clear and true. From the first day spoken, the pattern begun. Time measured steady by the course of the sun. Not drifting with phases, not lost in the night. His order stands firm in the turning of light. The heavens declare, the firmament sings. The sun runs his course like a strong man's race. Out of his chamber the bridegroom brings the turning of time to its rightful place. Fixed in the sun, not blown by the tide. Yahweh's calendar doesn't shift or slide.
Greetings, Israelites. Welcome to Brother Hebert Presents. This is part 3 of Why the Solar Calendar. You can follow along with the article by going to www.thinkoutsidethebeast.com. Why the Solar Calendar can be found in the calendar section. In part 2, we learned that the moon's presence in Scripture does not equal calendar authority. While Genesis 1 establishes timekeeping governance through functional lights that rule seasons, days, and years, the moon fails those requirements because it does not generate light consistently, does not divide day from night, and does not regulate seasons. Passages often used to support lunar authority, like Psalm 104:19, are reframed to describe the moon's place as a marker within Yahweh's already established order, not as the governing mechanism. In short, the moon can testify to cycles, but Scripture never grants it the power to initiate months, reset weeks, or control the appointed times. The study also emphasizes that new moon language is not a biblical command for moon sighting, but a translation-driven assumption layered onto the Hebrew concept of renewal, Kodesh. The legal texts give detailed instructions for counting days, Sabbaths, and fixed feast dates, yet remain silent on crescents, witnesses, observation courts, or lunar resets, silence treated here as decisive. Prophetic moon imagery, darkened, blood, not giving light, is categorized as judgment symbolism rather than calendar instruction. Properly placed, the moon has real secondary uses: night light, practical rhythms, and witness symbolism, but it never governs Yahweh's weeks, Sabbaths, or moeds, appointed times, which remain creation-anchored and countable. In Scripture, the day is most consistently treated as beginning with morning light, sunrise, when life, labor, judgments, and daily counting actually commence, when the night is measured in watches and naturally ends at dawn. Passages that say from even unto even, like Leviticus 23:32, are best understood as instructions for the start and end of a specific observance, the Fast of Atonement, not a universal rule redefining every day's boundary. So, while certain holy observances may begin the evening prior for practical devotion, the biblical day itself is most coherently reckoned from sunrise to sunrise, preserving the creation rhythm of light, ruling the day, and keeping time countable. Now let's learn how the solar calendar works. How the solar calendar works. A coherent biblical model. Up to this point, the study has established solar authority from creation, fixed seasons, Tekufa, Abib as the first month, a 364-day priestly year, continuous Sabbaths, fixed feast appointments, historical preservation among priests, and later displacement by rabbinic tradition. This section does not argue those points again. Its purpose is simple: to show how the biblical solar calendar functions as a complete usable system without contradiction. Governing principles of the solar calendar. The biblical solar calendar operates on a small number of non-negotiable principles. Time is governed by creation order, not observation. The year begins in spring, at renewal, Abib. Weeks are continuous and unbroken. Seasons are fixed and countable. Feasts are appointed, not floating. Human declaration never initiates sacred time. If any proposed calendar violates one of these, it fails. Structure of the year. The year consists of 364 days, 52 weeks, 4 seasons, 91 days per season, 13 weeks per season. This structure ensures Sabbaths never drift, feast weekdays never change, seasons remain aligned with agriculture, no month ever interrupts the week cycle. The calendar is governed by weeks, not months. The beginning of the year. The year begins in spring with renewal, in the month called Abib, month 1, at the seasonal turning, Tekupha, when the sun comes out of his tabernacle, the dark of night into the day where the light shines on the earth. Psalm 19:5, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber and rejoices as a strong man to run a race. To begin the year, the light is the gunshot that starts the race. The beginning is solar, agricultural, fixed, and predictable. It does not depend on moon phases, crescent sightings, human witnesses, or rabbinic rulings. Months in the solar calendar. Months function as administrative divisions, not governing units. Key features. Months are counted, not observed. Scripture states 30-day months. Then why are seasons 91 days? The 91st days are the seasonal markers. There's one after every 3 months. 360 days plus 4 seasonal markers for 91st days equals 364. Month boundaries never reset weeks. Months never determine Sabbaths. The term Kodesh refers to renewal, not lunar phase. Weeks and Sabbaths. The Sabbath occurs every 7th day, is never interrupted, never resets, never floats. This preserves the command,
6 days shall you labor, but the 7th day is the Sabbath.
Any calendar that requires skipping Sabbaths, adding non-weekly days, or resetting weeks is incompatible with Scripture. Feast days within the calendar. Feasts are fixed by day number, season, week placement. Examples: Passover, 14th day of the first month; unleavened bread, the 15th through the 21st; first fruits, the morrow after the weekly Sabbath, which is the first day of unleavened bread, the 15th, also a high Sabbath. So first fruits is the 16th day of the month. These first 3 feasts occur in succession, 1, 2, 3, the 14th, 15th, and 16th. Weeks, or Pentecost, 7 complete Sabbaths counted, 50 days from the 16th of first fruits. Trumpets, the first day of the 7th month. Atonement, the 10th day of the 7th month. And Tabernacles, the 15th through the 22nd. These dates never drift, never shift seasons, never require recalculation. Intercalation and the solar year. The solar year is approximately 365 1/4 days, while the calendar year is 364 days. Scripture allows for seasonal adjustment, intercalation outside the weekly cycle, and preservation of Sabbaths. What Scripture does not allow: breaking the week, floating feasts, human calendar authority. Intercalation is seasonal, not monthly. Why this calendar is simple. Unlike rabbinic or astronomical systems, the biblical solar calendar requires no sighting, requires no calculations, requires no court, requires no declarations, and requires no adjustments to weeks. It is countable, teachable, repeatable, and obedience-focused. When all Scripture, historical, and practical elements are combined, the result is a solar-governed year, fixed seasons, continuous Sabbaths, appointed feasts, no lunar dependency, no rabbinic authority. This is not a speculative model. It is the only calendar that satisfies all biblical requirements simultaneously. Applying the solar calendar, Sabbaths, feasts, and faithful practice. Application without legalism. Understanding the solar calendar is not about creating a new sect, enforcing technical precision, judging others' observance, or replacing one tradition with another. It's about restoring biblical order, honoring Yahweh's appointments, aligning worship with creation, obeying what can be known, participating in your heritage. Calendar truth must serve faithfulness, not pride. The weekly Sabbaths in practice. The solar calendar preserves continuous 7-day Sabbaths, predictable rest, consistent worship rhythm. In practice, the Sabbath remains every 7th day. No weeks are skipped or reset. No feast overrides the weekly cycle. Rest and worship are orderly and repeatable. This fulfills the spirit and letter of
6 days shall you labor, and do all your work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath.
Annual Sabbaths and Feast Days. Annual Sabbaths, high days, are tied to fixed calendar dates, occur within fixed seasons, do not interrupt the weekly count. This means Passover always occurs in spring, First Fruits always follows a weekly Sabbath, Pentecost always completes 7 full Sabbaths, Tabernacles always aligns with ingathering. Feasts regain their meaning, not just their timing. Counting rather than observing. The solar calendar is practiced by counting days, counting weeks, counting seasons. It is not practiced by watching the sky, waiting for announcements, adjusting dates retroactively, or depending on courts or authorities. This removes confusion and restores simplicity. Intercalation in practice. Because the solar year exceeds 364 days, seasonal adjustment is necessary. Biblical principles allow adjustment outside the weekly cycle, preservation of Sabbaths, alignment with agriculture. What must never happen: breaking the Sabbath count, shifting feast dates mid-cycle, or creating floating holy days. Intercalation serves seasonal integrity, not calendar control. Dealing with disagreement. Faithful believers may reach different conclusions, may be at different stages of study and understanding, may observe differently in practice. This study does not require immediate uniformity, complete consensus, or institutional enforcement. It requires honest study, scriptural priority, and charity and respect toward brethren. Calendar truth should clarify, not divide. Worship without a temple. In the absence of a functioning temple, a Levitical priesthood, and national Israelite governance, feasts are observed as memorials, as rehearsals, as teaching tools, and as covenant reminders. They are not sacrificial obligations, grounds for condemnation, or tests of salvation. This distinction matters. Teaching the milk and the meat. For new learners, emphasize spring beginnings, emphasize Sabbath continuity, emphasize fixed feasts, avoid technical overload. For advanced students, explore the 364-day structure, study the Dead Sea Scrolls and priestly courses, examine intercalation history, and test assumptions carefully. The solar calendar accommodates both levels of understanding. Why precision still matters. Even without enforcement, precision matters because Yahweh values order. Appointed times teach obedience. Prophetic patterns rely on timing. Chaos always produces confusion. Faithfulness is not perfection, it is alignment. Transition forward. With foundations established in Part 1, witnesses examined in Part 2, the system synthesized and applied here in Part 3, one final step remains: to summarize the entire case clearly, concisely, and decisively, and to show why the solar calendar stands when all others fail. Equinox-anchored solar year, multi-decade consistency test. The purpose of the chart created on the document was to test one simple question. Can a solar calendar anchored to the spring equinox, the Tekufa, maintain year-to-year consistency without lunar observation, rabbinic postponements, or arbitrary weekday rules? The answer, demonstrated below, is yes. Method: plain, verifiable, non-speculative. The chart uses a true astronomical spring equinox local time, a fixed day 1 anchor, the calendar date on which the equinox occurs down to the hour and minute, a 364-day base year, 52 complete weeks, intercalation only when mathematically required for the 91st days. Each year is tested against the next year's actual equinox date. No assumptions are made about new moons, weekday names, rabbinic delay rules, continuous lunar cycles, or Dead Sea Scrolls Wednesday dogma. Only observable solar reality is used. How to read the chart. Each row shows the spring equinox date and time, the day 1 of that solar year, where day 1 would land next year if the year were 364 days, 365 days, or 366 days, the actual day 1 of the following year, and the only year length that preserves alignment. If 364 days were used every year, drift would occur. If 365 days were used every year, drift would occur. If 366 days were used every year, drift would occur. But when the year length is allowed to alternate only as required, alignment is preserved without exception. What this chart proves: the solar year does not need the moon. Across multiple decades, no lunar observation is required. No new moon resets are required. No luni-solar hybrid rules are needed. The Bible's silence on moon observation is therefore mathematically justified, not accidental. The year begins at a fixed solar marker. The spring equinox is globally observable, is agriculturally meaningful, matches Tekufa usage in Scripture, and does not drift through the seasons. This confirms the solar, not lunar, authority of the biblical year. Intercalation is natural, minimal, and predictable. Intercalation occurs only when alignment demands it. Seasonal markers, 91st days, and leap years. Never arbitrarily, never by priestly decree, and never by postponement rules. This stands in sharp contrast to the Jewish rabbinic calendar, luni-solar month juggling, floating Passovers, and artificial weekday preservation. Why other systems break down. Lunar and luni-solar calendars fail because 29.5-day months cannot align with 7-day Sabbaths. A pure lunar year is 12 months times 29.53 days equals around 354 days. That is around 11 days shorter than the true solar year, which is around 365.25 days. So, a lunar year is never 365 days. What happens if you do nothing? If you used only lunar months with no correction, year 1 is around 354 days. Year 2 is around 354 days. Seasons drift backwards around 11 days every year. After 3 years, about 33 days drift. In 8 or 9 years, you have about a 3-month drift. And every 33 years, you have a full seasonal reversal. That's why pure lunar calendars, like Islam's, deliberately allow feasts to wander through the seasons. Lunisolar fixes create a problem. To prevent seasonal drift, lunisolar systems insert extra months. Typical pattern. A normal year is about 354 days. Leap year, 354 plus 29 or 30 is around 383 to 384 days. So in practice, 1 year is around 354 days, another year around 383 or 4. The average is around 365, but no individual year is stable. New moons never repeat on consistent weekdays. Intercalation is forced, complex, and unstable. Feast days drift against the agricultural year. Continuous weekday systems fail because they preserve weekdays at the expense of seasons. They ignore Tekufa boundaries. They require artificial rules to fix drift. The Dead Sea Scrolls, which uses a Wednesday start model, fails because they confuse a sample year with a rule. They freeze a weekday instead of honoring the equinox. They collapse when extended beyond limited data sets. They are not consistent like as the scriptural reckoning we follow. What this chart does not claim. This chart does not set weekday names, set worship times, set Sabbath timing within the day, or resolve sunrise versus sunset debates. It only proves year-to-year solar consistency. Why this matters? If the year cannot be anchored correctly, feast days cannot be correct, Sabbaths drift, agricultural signs lose meaning, calendar authority shifts from creation to tradition. This chart demonstrates that Yahweh's calendar can be simple, observable, and stable without human manipulation. The chart covers 60 years from 1990 to 2050. It shows by the exact time, the exact hour and minute of the spring equinox, and shows where the Tekufa is anchored. If you're listening, you'll have to look at the chart to really get a grasp of it all. Why this chart is powerful. A solar year anchored to the spring equinox maintains consistency across decades using only minimal intercalation for leap years and exact hour-minute timing of the equinoxes, without lunar observation, postponement rules, or weekday manipulation. It is important to stay consistent with determining the day by the clock time of the equinox. If the sun had not set and dusk has not turned to night, then the day date of the spring equinox is the first day of the year. For example, in 2007, the equinox was March 20th at 8:07 p.m. Since the dark of night has not occurred yet, the 20th would be the first of the year. In 2020, the equinox was March 19th, 11:49 p.m. Since the sun had already set, dusk passed, and night arrived, the following day, the 20th, is the first day of the year, at sunrise. Now in 2032, the equinox is March 19th at 9:21 p.m., the ending of dusk and night arriving. So the 20th would be the first day when the sun rises. If the sun had already set and night arrived, then the next day would be the first day of the year when the sun rises. What you should notice immediately, our core pattern holds. Day 1 stays March 20th, except predictable edge years or leap years. For example, 2048, March 19th. The correct solution is always 365 or 366 days. No drift accumulates. No lunar reset is needed. This is exactly what the chart demonstrates. 364 is the base, not the solution. 364 never lands correctly long term. This confirms 52 weeks equals structure, intercalation equals reality, which is precisely the Enoch Jubilees model without mysticism. Why this chart is devastating to rival systems. Without even drawing their charts, this exposes lunar calendars cannot maintain Sabbath alignment. Lunisolar calendars require artificial postponement rules. Perpetual weekday systems preserve weeks but break seasons. The Wednesday start Dead Sea Scrolls dogma collapses when extended past sample years. Our chart works because it tests next year reality, not internal assumptions. It goes by a precise reckoning by the exact clock time of the equinox and determining if the sun of that day had set or not. When following this pattern, the results are consistent. What about the extra days in longer years? In a solar-based calendar, the year is anchored to the sun's completed circuit, not to an uninterrupted weekday cycle. Because the true solar year is approximately 365¼ days, occasional adjustment days are unavoidable in any honest calendar. These extra days are not a problem. They are simply additional days at the end of the year, inserted to preserve alignment with the seasons, agricultural cycles, the spring Tekufa, the new year. Scripture never defines these days as special feast days, required Sabbaths, or forbidden work days. They are ordinary days which may be rested on or worked on, unless otherwise specified. Why the weekly Sabbath appears to shift. The first day of the year is the true reset point of the calendar. When a year contains 364 days, the next year begins on the same weekday. When it contains 365 days, the next year begins 1 weekday later. When it contains 366 days, the next year begins 2 weekdays later. This is not a defect, it is mathematical reality. The Sabbath does not float. Rather, the year resets independently of the weekday cycle. This same phenomenon is observable today in the Gregorian calendar. Modern parallel, the Gregorian calendar. In the Gregorian system, the date of the spring equinox remains stable, the calendar months stay fixed, seasonal markers remain consistent, yet weekdays shift forward each year, leap years shift them forward by 2 days. This demonstrates an important principle. Seasonal consistency does not require weekday consistency. The biblical calendar prioritizes the year's solar turning, seasonal order, and agricultural faithfulness, not preserving a perpetual weekday alignment. Scripture never commands a perpetual weekday cycle. Nowhere does Scripture command that the Sabbath must always fall on the same weekday name, that the 7-day count must override the turning of the year, that intercalary days must be forbidden or outside time. Those ideas arise from later tradition, not biblical instruction. In solar reckoning, occasional days are a natural result of aligning the calendar to the sun's true circuit. These days are ordinary days, not additional feast days or mandated Sabbaths. The new year itself resets the calendar, which is why the weekday alignment shifts by 1 day in common years and 2 days in longer years. This same principle is observable in the modern Gregorian calendar, where seasonal and calendar dates remain fixed while weekdays shift. Scripture prioritizes the turning of the year and the preservation of seasons, not an uninterrupted weekday cycle. Final summary and conclusion. Why the solar calendar is biblical, coherent, and faithful. What this study has established. This study has not attempted to invent a calendar, revive a sect, or overthrow Scripture with speculation. Its goal has been simple and disciplined: to identify which calendar system best satisfies all biblical requirements simultaneously. By testing every claim against Scripture, language, history, and internal consistency, the following conclusions emerge clearly. Creation establishes solar authority. From the beginning, light governs time. The sun rules the day. Seasons depend on solar movement. Life follows seasonal order. The moon reflects light, marks nights, serves as a witness and sign, is never granted governing authority over time. Creation itself establishes a solar-governed framework. Scripture demands fixed time, not observed time. Bible timekeeping is counted, appointed, declared by Yahweh, independent of human observation. Scripture never commands moon sighting, witness testimony, court declaration, or retroactive adjustment. An appointed time, moed, cannot float, shift, or wait on men. The year begins in spring by design. The first month is Abib, defined by ripening grain, governed by season, anchored to renewal. The year begins at a seasonal turning, Tekufa, not a lunar phase, Psalm 19, 1-6. This ensures agricultural alignment, feast integrity, and prophetic consistency. The 364-day structure preserves Sabbath law. A 364-day year uniquely provides 52 exact weeks, unbroken Sabbaths, fixed feast weekdays, seasonal symmetry. No lunar or lunisolar system can preserve continuous Sabbaths, keep feasts fixed, and maintain seasonal alignment, without breaking one command to preserve another. Feasts require fixed appointments. Yahweh's feasts are numbered, are seasonal, are agricultural, and are prophetic rehearsals. Floating feasts break typology, break rehearsal, and break obedience. Only a solar calendar preserves all feast requirements at once. Why modern Passover drifts? Lunar versus solar year explained. One of the clearest evidences of the difference between lunar and solar reckoning is the observable drift of modern Passover dates. In the modern Jewish calendar, Passover can shift forward or backward by as much as 2 to 3 weeks when compared against the fixed solar seasonal framework. This occurs because the Jewish calendar is fundamentally lunar-based. The lunar year is shorter than the solar year. A lunar year consists of approximately 12 lunar months times 29.53 days equals 354.36 days. A solar year consists of approximately 365.25 days. This creates an annual difference of almost 11 days. This means that every lunar year ends about 11 days earlier than the solar year. If no correction were made, Passover would drift earlier each year by about 11 days, eventually moving completely out of spring. This exact problem is warned about in Scripture. Observe the month of Abib, and keep the Passover unto Yahweh your God. Deuteronomy 16:1. Abib is defined by the spring agricultural season, not by lunar phase alone. Intercalary months are added to correct the drift. Because of this yearly 11-day loss, the Jewish calendar adds an extra month, Adar 2, approximately 7 times every 19 years. This creates alternating year lengths. A regular lunar year is 354 days. A leap lunar year is 384 days. This produces sudden forward corrections of about 30 days, causing Passover to jump forward again after drifting earlier. This creates the observed instability. Example pattern. Year 1. Passover, April 22nd. Year 2, Passover, April 11th. Year 3, Passover, March 31st. Year 4, leap month added, Passover, April 18th. This cycle creates apparent movement of up to 2 to 3 weeks or more relative to fixed solar reckoning. Historical witnesses confirm, not invent, the solar calendar. Enoch preserves the ideal priestly model. Jubilees condemns lunar corruption. Dead Sea Scrolls document priestly solar practice. Maccabees preserve fixed feast observance under persecution. These witnesses do not establish doctrine. They confirm continuity. Rabbinical lunar authority arose from circumstance, not scripture. The lunar calendar arose after temple destruction, required human authority, centralized control in courts, detached time from creation. Its dominance is historical, not biblical. Tradition replaced priestly order. Classical commentators assume, they do not prove. The classical commentators affirm seasons and harvest, preserve Sabbath continuity, and assume lunar mechanics without analysis. They do not refute the solar calendar because they never examined it. Respect of their work does not require surrender to inherited assumptions. The day boundary question does not overturn the calendar. Whether one reckons days evening to evening, which is Babylonian and Jewish, or morning to morning, the correct biblical, the solar calendar remains intact. Weeks remain continuous, seasons remain fixed, feasts remain appointed. This question is secondary and does not undermine the framework established. What the solar calendar is and is not. The solar calendar is biblical, ordered, teachable, faith-preserving, creation-aligned. It is not a salvation test, a sectarian weapon, a reason for division, or a replacement gospel. It restores order without imposing bondage. It has meaning, symbolism, and details the gospel message and redemption. The calendar was formally instituted at the Exodus, the beginning of months for Israel. While the sun, moon, and stars were established at creation to govern time, Genesis 1:14-18, Scripture makes it clear that the official calendar reckoning for Israel as a covenant nation was formally instituted by Yahweh at the Exodus. This was not left to human observation, tradition, or inherited systems. It was declared directly by divine command. The foundational command, "And Yahweh spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying,
This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you."
Exodus 12:1-2. This command establishes several critical calendar authorities. Yahweh himself defines the beginning of the year. The instruction is given specifically to Israel as a covenant nation. The calendar is reset in connection with redemption from bondage, which is the gospel message in the stars. The beginning of the year is anchored to a specific seasonal point, Abib, the spring equinox. This is the first explicit calendar command given to our Israelite ancestors as a people. The month of Abib is the beginning of the year. Scripture later clarifies which month this refers to. "Observe the month of Abib, and keep the Passover unto Yahweh your God, for in the month of Abib Yahweh your God brought you forth out of Egypt by night." Deuteronomy 16:1. The Hebrew word Abib, H24, means green ears of grain, ripening barley, early spring agricultural stage. This proves the year begins in the spring season, not arbitrarily. The calendar is tied to redemption history, agricultural reality, and seasonal order established in creation. The calendar was a reset at redemption, a covenant marker. The Exodus represents the birth of Israel as a covenant nation under Yahweh's direct rule. Before this moment, Israel lived under Egyptian authority and Egyptian calendrical systems. At Exodus, Yahweh established a new national calendar. This shows that covenant timekeeping begins with covenant relationship. Just as Yahweh separated Israel from Egypt physically, he also separated them from Egyptian systems of reckoning time. Creation established the governing lights.
"Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven. Let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years."
Genesis 1:14. This established the physical framework, but Exodus 12 established the covenant application of that framework for Israel as a nation. Creation provided the clock. Exodus defined when Israel would begin counting. The beginning of months was declared, not discovered. Yahweh did not instruct Israel to search for a calendar. He declared it.
This month shall be unto you the beginning of months.
This demonstrates calendar authority flows from divine command, not human tradition. Israel's calendar begins with redemption. Time itself becomes covenant-centered. The first month is connected to spring, not arbitrary lunar observation. Abib is not a lunar term. It is an agricultural and seasonal term. It occurs when barley is ripening, winter has ended, spring has begun. This aligns naturally with the solar seasonal cycle. This confirms the calendar is anchored to seasonal reality, not merely lunar phase. The calendar begins with redemption. This also establishes a prophetic pattern. Creation establishes time. Exodus establishes covenant time. Messiah fulfills covenant time. Redemption marks the beginning. Timekeeping is tied to Yahweh's covenant acts in history. The governing lights were created at creation to establish the structure of time, but Yahweh formally instituted Israel's covenant calendar at the Exodus when he declared the month of Abib to be the beginning of months and the first month of the year. This establishes that Israel's calendar authority flows directly from divine command to redemption and seasonal reality, not from inherited pagan systems, lunar tradition, or human observation. Final conclusion. When all evidence is weighed, creation supports solar authority. Scripture requires fixed appointments. Sabbaths demand unbroken weeks. Feasts require seasonal alignment. History confirms priestly solar practice. Tradition alone supports lunar authority. The solar calendar stands alone as the only system that satisfies every biblical requirement without contradiction. Let all things be done decently and in order. Restoring Yahweh's times is not about perfection. It is about alignment. This study is offered as a foundation for further study, honest testing, faithful obedience, and clear teaching. May truth be sought above tradition, and Scripture above assumption. Solar sanity or lunar lunacy? The choice is yours, but for me and my house, we will serve Yahweh and His glorious Son.
Dust to the dawn, light spoke first. Before clocks, before kings, before priests of verse. He set the lights up high to rule the way, the sun for the day, the night to its place. Not guessing by shadows, not chasing the moon, but seasons and signs written clear and true. From the first day spoken, the pattern begun. Time measured steady by the course of the sun. Not drifting with phases, not lost in the night. His order stands firm in the turning of light. The heavens declare, the firmament sings. The sun runs his course like a strong man's race. Out of his chamber the bridegroom brings the turning of time to its rightful place. Fixed in the sun, not blown by the tide. Yahweh's calendar doesn't doesn't shift or slide. He said this month first in the land of change, freedom marked by the breaking of Pharaoh's reign. Abib in the spring when the barley stands, first day of the year by command, not man. Take your 4 turns, the circuit complete, the year reset when the paths all meet. Not 31 guesses, not lunar delay, but a faithful count that won't drift away. From Exodus law to the fields in bloom, the cycle holds steady, no shadow doom. The heavens declare, the firmament sings, the sun runs his course like a strong man's race. Out of his chamber the bridegroom brings the turning of time to its rightful place. Fixed in the sun, not blown by the tide. Yahweh's calendar doesn't shift or slide. No chasing crescents through cloudy skies, no leap month patchwork, no borrowed lies. Days stacked clean in a perfect round, 7 to 7 firm and sound. When the year turns over, the count resets. The Sabbath stands where the sun is set. Not chaos, not chance, not lunar confusion, but order spoken at creation's conclusion. Psalm 19 hums through the open air, no voice, no words, but truth is there. From end of heaven to the other side, nothing hides from the heat of his stride. Farmers know if the seasons agree, seed time, harvest faithfully. What God established still governs the land, unchanging rhythms by his own hand. The heavens declare, the firmament sings, the sun runs his course like a strong man's race. Out of his chamber the bridegroom brings the turning of time to its rightful place. Fixed in the sun, steady and true, from first light spoken to all things new. So walk in the light, keep the days aligned with the order Yahweh designed. No lunar drift, no borrowed tune,